I'll split you from your groin to your gullet.
On a Friday night, Clara was stuck babysitting. She got bored, however, and invited Billy over. Together, they decided to summon the Candyman by saying his name 5 times. He gave Clara a little too much sugar, but Billy escaped. At least that's the story Helen is told as she records it. She checks in with her friend Bernadette, who is interviewing a different student about the Candyman. Afterwards, Helen sits in for the last few minutes of her husband's class. She confronts Trevor about flirting with a couple of hotties he has as students. Some janitors conveniently overhear Helen's interview tape, and they tell Helen about Ruthie, a woman who lived in Cabrini Green. Ruthie called 911 saying a man was trying to come through the wall. Of course, no one believed her. She was murdered that night, death by hook. Helen does some quick research on Ruthie and Cabrini Green. She discovers that her building was originally a housing project and shares this information with Bernadette. The poorly constructed building doesn't even have a wall behind each unit's medicine cabinets. Afterwards, they decide to test the Candyman summon ritual, but Bernadette chickens out, only saying his name 4 times. That night, Helen hears some noises and gets jumped by a suspicious man, whom turns out to be her husband. The next day, Helen and Bernadette head to Cabrini Green to investigate the place where Ruthie died. Bernadette tries to dissuade Helen from going between the suites, but fails. Helen fearlessly, albeit stupidly, goes into the suite where the killer came from. On the floor, she finds some candy. Apparently someone had the munchies. Helen runs out of film and goes back through the hole. A neighbor comes to check what the 2 women are up to, calling them out for snooping around. Anne-Marie tells them about the night Ruthie died, how she heard the screams and called the cops, but no one ever came to help. Helen goes back alone later to take more photos. She meets Jake outside Anne-Marie's house. He calls her crazy for coming here alone. Helen asks Jake to take her to the Candyman and promises him she won't tell anyone. He takes her to a small restroom, telling her that Charlie said the Candyman lives there. He tells her that a young boy was brutally murdered inside. Helen goes in, coughing from the putrid smell. She checks each of the stalls. Graffiti written with shit covers the last stall, and the toilet within is filled with bees.
Candyman.
A man with a hook enters the building, claiming to be the Candyman. Helen is attacked and left crumpled on the floor. At the police station, Helen identifies the man who attacked her, and he's locked away. Jake worries that the Candyman will be after him now because Helen didn't keep their secret. Believing that the murderer has been caught, she assures him the Candyman isn't real. Bernadette gives Helen the camera she had when she was attacked, photos intact. While loading things into her car, a man behind Helen repeats her name.
Helen. Helen, I came for you.
Helen sits in a trance as the man approaches her. He reveals a hook connected to the stump of his right arm. She awakens in a bathroom covered in blood while a woman screams and wails outside the room. On the floor is a dog's head next to a knife. Helen grabs the knife and finds Anne-Marie in hysterics standing over her baby's crib, blood splattered everywhere. Crazed, she attacks Helen, throwing her to the ground. Helen defends herself and slashes Anne-Marie's arm. She holds her down right as the police arrive. Helen is arrested and made to remove her clothes while begging for a shower. She tries to explain what happened, however, the police have no interest in hearing anything she has to say. When she phones Trevor at 3 a.m., he's not home. Must be out flirting with those students again. While in prison, Helen has a vision of the baby, Anthony, and Candyman. Trevor picks Helen up from the prison. At home, the lawyer asks her for more details about her story, but she tells them she blacked out. Later, Helen asks Trevor where he was, and he lies saying he was asleep. Trevor goes to pick something up, leaving Helen alone. Helen looks at her photos, noticing a man standing behind her in the mirror. Feeling spooked, she goes into the bathroom where Candyman tries a sneak hook attack. Helen tries to run away, but Candyman blocks her path in the hallway. She runs back into the apartment, where he tells her that baby Anthony is still alive and that she can die in his place. He explains that her disbelief ruined the faith of his candy cult, so he had to shed innocent blood. Bernadette rings the doorbell with some flowers for Helen. She hears Helen's cries and rushes in, only to get got. Trevor arrives home to find a knife in his wife's hands. Helen awakens to police throughout her home and Bernadette looking a little disheveled. Helen has another vision about baby Anthony. Candyman speaks in her head, trying to convince her that life as a whispered myth is great. Helen is strapped to a bed and left alone in her room. Candyman hovers above her and asks Helen for a smooch. He hides under the bed when staff come in. Helen is taken to Dr. Burke, where she's informed that she's been drugged up for a month. He shows her the footage of when she was first admitted, showing that Candyman was not there. Helen claims that she is simply not capable of doing what was done to Bernadette and says she can summon the Candyman. She turns to the mirror and says his name 5 times. Nothing seems to happen when suddenly Dr. Burke is violently assaulted by the Candyman from behind. Candyman tells her that the candy cult will soon be witnessing a new miracle. He removes Helen's restraints and gracefully flies out the window. Helen escapes through the window and jumps an employee, stealing her clothes. She narrowly avoids the police and runs away, trying to get home. She finds her home under renovation. The hottie from earlier is busy painting all of the walls pink. Helen tells her to get out.
Trevor! What's the matter, sweetie pie? Did you make another little boo-boo?
Trevor asks his new squeeze to call the hospital, but she's too scared to go near Helen. They stand a distance from the phone as Helen breaks down from losing the last person she had. She stands at a bridge, hearing the Candyman in her head again, telling her of his desire for her. Eventually, Helen goes back to Ruthie's suite and crawls through the hole once again. Inside, she finds a candy shrine with candles and hanging hooks. Helen takes a hook and crawls up through the ceiling. She finds old paintings of Candyman on the wall, depicting his story. In the center of the room, she spots a sleepy Candyman taking a nap. She holds the hook out and strikes him right as he awakens. She reminds him of his deal, and Candyman promises the baby shall be unharmed if she surrenders to him, and she does.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite.
He asks her to come with him, and together they will be a dynamic duo of demons. Candyman unleashes upon her and into her his swarm of bees. Helen awakens in a panic, brushing herself off. She finds some sus writing on the walls at a candy shrine. Outside the building, Helen hears baby Anthony atop a pile of junk meant for a bonfire. Jake hears the noise and watches Helen crawl around.
He's here.
Jake and some boys pour gasoline all over the pile as Helen finally reaches Anthony. They light up the pile while the residents come out of the building chanting, "Burn!" Candyman holds Helen, refusing to let her go. She grabs a flaming piece of wood and stabs him. While holding baby Anthony, Helen crawls out of the bonfire, hair and body aflame. Some people rush in, extinguishing the flames, while Helen returns Anthony to his mom, Anne-Marie. Candyman seems to finally die in a blaze of glory and bees. At Helen's funeral, the only people to show up are Trevor, his mistress, the lawyer, and a random jackass that was not included earlier. Out of nowhere, all of the residents from Cabrini Green arrive to pay their respects to Helen for finally ridding them of the diabetes menace. At home, Trevor sits in the bathroom while his side piece tries to tempt him with a nice dinner. He remembers his time with Helen, perhaps finally having some remorse for his actions. Probably not really. In the mirror, he says Helen's name 5 times.
What's the matter, Trevor? Scared of something?
Helen enjoys the violence a little too much. Trevor's mistress hears the commotion and rushes over to see a mess of Trevor.